Hello, welcome to the Tennessee Informer, a special edition of the Tennessee Informer. We have some breaking news happened earlier today. You may or may not have heard about it yet, but for those of you who are getting ramped up for the election, this is great news.
Hey, good morning, friends. This is Monty Fritz. I'm currently state representative for House District 32, and I come to you this morning needing your help to set a course correction in the state of Tennessee. I'm officially announcing today that I'm going to run for the office of governor in 2026, and I'm asking for your vote. Today, I begin the process of applying to 7 million Tennesseans to serve you as your governor starting in 2026. We live in the best place in the world, friends, in this place we call Tennessee. Almighty God has blessed us in this place and in our Tennessee soil and in the Tennesseans that we live around. But unfortunately, we have allowed those in the Nashville establishment to head us in the wrong direction. We're headed away from liberty, and government is growing. So my friends, I want this movement to be a movement that moves us toward liberty and less government in Tennessee.
And with us now is Representative Monty Fritz, now candidate for Tennessee governor in 2026. Hello, Monty.
Hello,
how are you?
I'm good, brother. It's good to be with you.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It's a big day. Glad to be part of it. Glad you took the time to come on the show. Really appreciate it. And I'm excited about your run. I know that we talked about this a few weeks ago, that you're seriously considering it. And I know other people around the state have been like, well, is he going to run? I hope he runs. I hope I have somebody to vote for instead of just somebody to vote against. And so I think there's a lot of people like that out there.
Yeah, I think maybe too. I will tell you, Dave, liberty and less government. I think that's meaningful to me, because I think all of us have a thirst for liberty. I think most of us have a distaste for the growth of government, the growth of budget, and the growth of infringement on our rights as Tennesseans, our God-given rights. You know, we've heard this silly U.S. Senator from Virginia talk some this week about he thinks that rights come from our laws, that man writes, rather than from God. And of course, that's an apostate thought constitutionally. And our founders and framers, those from Virginia, are rolling over in their graves, if you will, that a Virginia U.S. Senator is saying that. It's a sad thing. But I will tell you, Dave, we've trended that way in Tennessee some. We've trended toward that we are the dispenser or grantor of your rights, we in government. And we have expected the citizen to behave as the grantee. And that is not what our founders intended. It is not what Almighty God intends. And so we're going to canvass the state of Tennessee. I've got lots of young folks and older folks that have volunteered to help and are volunteering to help. And they want to spread a message of liberty and less government in Tennessee. And you know, to your viewers, I know some of them are going to ask, well, how can we help? First, pray. Pray that I and all the other folks that serve us in Tennessee government now and after this coming election, that we'll do what's right and holy in God's eyes. And secondly, that we'll honor the Constitution, because we've sworn an oath to it. We should honor it. Yeah. And thirdly, that we'll keep a servant's heart. I think that, the Bible says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So we're going to pursue liberty. And we're going to condition toward less government in Tennessee as I take the governorship. I think that we need to recalibrate the executive level and management level in Nashville of the departments. Lots of good men and women all across the state of Tennessee, good state employees. Many of them have told me they feel abandoned, betrayed by the fact that the budget has grown so, and they feel like they're kind of being pushed out for contractors and special interests. And I think we need to turn that around. There are some things that are a function of government, and government should be doing them. And there are some things that simply aren't the function of government constitutionally, and the government has no authority to be doing those things, and we need to get away from those. And unfortunately, some of those involve funding NGOs and other organizations and contractors to do things that some master plan wants to accomplish. Again, I just want to get us back to liberty and less government.
Yeah. And
I think us just want to earn a living, keep more of our money, make the decisions ourselves. I don't need to be incentivized by redistributing the wealth of the state in a voucher scam to make good decisions for where kids go to school. We're already free to do that. We don't need to be incentivized by government to decide what we're going to do with our farmland property, whether we sell it or whether we continue to raise crops on it. We just need to reduce that tax burden so it makes it a little bit easier for the farmers, and I think we can do that. We have to get that budget growth under control. 59% in 6 years is an egregious thing. I don't care how you rack it and how you stack it. That's not acceptable. It's not small government, and it's not liberty, because it starts to infringe on our liberties. So I'm excited. I have some plans. I have lots of plans that I want to put in place so that Tennessee can be that which I have envisioned, that I heard about men like Sevier and Crockett and Houston and York, great Tennesseans, great mothers all across this state that have gone nameless, that have raised up their children to do the right thing, to be honorable men and women, and that they've not had government sticking its hand into the decision making. That's what I want for Tennessee. And by God's grace, that's what I feel called to do. And by God's grace, that's what we're going to accomplish in Tennessee. Liberty and less government.
Well, I think liberty and less government sounds good to every person who considers themselves a conservative, believes in the Constitution, and is a Christian. Even if you're not a Christian, just being a conservative and a constitutionalist, you want as much freedom. And they use all of our tax money against us. You have a good example with what's happening with this appeal that the governor and AG are doing against the Second Amendment. We finally won the case. They spent 2 years worth of our tax dollars and fighting against our right, and that's not good enough. They want to spend They want to spend more of our money and probably ruin any chance this upcoming session of getting any kind of decent legislation through because, we're waiting on this trial.
Well, I will tell you, I talked to someone in the AG's office this week, nice young man, and I told him, and I'll say this to your viewers, I said this on Chris Hand's show this morning, just because we disagree doesn't mean I don't love you. I do, but sometimes love means correction. And so I'm sure that I've stung a few feelings with the letter that we sent out, but I have a responsibility, a watchman on the wall responsibility, to stand up and notify the citizens when something bad has taken place. And the fact that a court relieved us of the tyranny of a 154-year-old law and was restoring liberty back to Tennessee, that's a thing we should celebrate. And we should want to get rid of all of the Jim Crow era mess that was put into our code. But the fact that we would use your money and my money, Kevin's money, Bubba's money, Susie's money, to argue against our rights, I just can't get there. That is, again, I'll use that phrase I think I've already used once. It's a constitutionally apostate view. They have turned back from the truth. And I know that sounds hard, but this is a hard time. This is a time when men stand up. Unfortunately, we have some weak men that won't stand up. And will find themselves complacent in their nature that, we'll work it out. Well, we've had a supermajority for a while, and we hadn't worked this out.
Yep.
The court had to, through a lawsuit, through Hughes v. Lee, had to give us that victory. And so to hand it back, to push it back, to take it back, if you will, for the governor, and I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking, but that is not Republican platform. And even more importantly, you take the party out of it. It is not Constitution. It is not Bill of Rights. It is not Make America Great Again. As a matter of fact, last thing, lots of energy behind that, and I'll stop on this. I think what we did with just the notice of appeal is we made folks in Memphis less safe. I think we made folks at Nashville's just made a really bad list for crime, right?
Yeah.
And we made folks less safe? Because what we've done is we want to keep language in the current code that becomes a discouragement for a man or a woman to be able to arm themselves to protect themselves.
And their families.
It puts them at greater vulnerability for these crazy blue-haired progressive people that want to strip us of all our rights, the Tim Kaines of the world that say that our rights come from men and from laws rather than God. Those people will use this not only the appeal, but the words that are going to come after that appeal, they're going to use it against responsible citizens in the state of Tennessee every chance they get. What are we thinking in Nashville? That Nashville establishment. Last thought on this, and I'll stop, I promise. That really, I think the anguish, I think the burden that God put on my shoulders back, because I didn't want to get into politics to start with. I have no desire I want to be in Kingston. I like Kingston. I like Rockwood. You know, I can go to Lenore City and go to the Walmart or whatever. I like this. I don't want to stay in Nashville for 4 years. But I don't want my freedoms stripped away from not just me, but our posterity.
Yep.
And we're doing that. And for I know this is going to sting my colleagues, but for the ones that haven't stood up and said something, what is wrong with you? This is a time. This is not a time to make goofy videos and talk about how something that completely unrelated to try to obfuscate the matter that we are having our liberty stripped from us by a governor's motives. It is not that time. This is a time to be heard. History is not going to look favorably upon those weak men who have sat with their mouths shut.
Yeah. And I want to say something on this as well, because I still run into people who say, well, we got constitutional carry in Tennessee. Well, most of us know that was never true, but there seems to be a lot of irony in the fact that the governor who claimed to give us constitutional carry even filed this lawsuit initially to actually give us, something by removing the intent to go armed, we would actually come closer to having something he claimed to have already given us. So, he's just totally hypocritical. And maybe people will wake up now and realize, hey, he didn't really give us that, did he? So I think it's ironic and disgraceful, but we'll move on to the next topic. And now you do have your website up and running. I think we've got that link on there, and I know you've got your donation page ready.
BridgeForTeens.com, yes, sir.
Yeah, I think we'll pop that up here in a second, but there it goes. One thing too on that, we played like just the first minute of it, but there is a 7-minute video on there now that goes more into depth. So when you go to the website, you can hear that introduction video, and there's a lot of information about what you believe and what your guiding principles are and what your goals are. So it's a really good site.
And I've got like my top 10 on there, and we kind of bulletized it a little bit, and it's 9 minutes rather than 7. And as everybody tells me, I speak too much, but it's only because I'm passionate about these things. And some things aren't a quick blurb. We tried to do that with the site. The person that's helped me has been tremendous. But we tried to do that. I would encourage you also to watch the video on that site. There's one I've got my Stetson on. Okay. And I talk about the definition of liberty and less government, because I think in some areas today, we don't understand the difference between liberty and freedom. And liberty just very basically meaning that God has given us the opportunity to decide left or right, and we bear the consequences either way, good and bad. That's liberty. That's what I want. Now,
you mentioned that this is not something that you wanted to, so it's not been your lifelong goal to run for governor, just like you really never intended to run for office. But it's the overreach. The overreach is what drug you out into this whole political arena, correct?
Well, several things. People being declared non-essential because they had a certain lawful occupation really just wore me out. I didn't think we were standing up enough. Parents being told that their kids had to sit in a broom closet in Knox County because they wouldn't accept the jab. That wore me out. my friends at Y12 and ORNL that I'd worked with for years being marginalized, to use the Democrat word, and kicked to the curb because they wouldn't take a shot. That bothered me. The fact that we had a stupid mask sign on every door bothered me. The fact that every time we go into a state facility now, there's a little Ghostbuster sign with a Beretta 92 in it that you can't carry in those areas. I can tell you this. I think I can executive order take those all down. And I'd like to replace them with a sign that says beware, because we have folks that are trained and able in these areas. Don't come in with bad intents, not in Tennessee. And I think that that perhaps offering that training to state employees, we struggled with the whole school thing. We're scared to death to let a teacher carry. And we set up a law that made it so convoluted that it'll never happen in Tennessee. And it breaks all our hearts when something horrible happens. My Democrat colleagues will say it's gun violence. Well, that's a meaningless word like spoon fatness. It doesn't mean anything. It's a meaningless phrase. What we need to do is deal with the heart of man. We need to be teaching our children in school the story of creation from Genesis, that we're created in God's image. And it doesn't matter if we have blue eyes or brown eyes. It doesn't matter if we have gray hair or brown hair, that we're created in God's image and we should respect life. And that's important. We should also take a little closer focus on our respect for life in Tennessee, because for all those babies that we murdered over the years, we developed a sense, I think, in a younger generation that life has no value. And so today we have a generation of young people that behave like animals in many cases because they've been conditioned that life has no value. And we've got to turn that. Now, that first thing is a repentance, to recognize that there is a base law in this thing, and that's what God has said. And I know that stings some people's ears to hear that. But the fact of the matter is, his law is absolute. We don't live in a theocracy. We absolutely do not. We live in a constitutional republic. But our republic is in jeopardy when we lose what base truth is. And when we start to go down this path where we decide that everyone has his or her own truth, then we can't determine whether it's a hen or a rooster anymore. And we just about have hit that. It broke my heart to hear this week. There was a report come out. I don't remember the source now. I hadn't fully investigated it. But the federal government was threatening to withhold funds from Tennessee and another 28 states because we were teaching gender identity rather than just biological male versus female as God has created us. And for Tennessee, if that article's true, and again, I hadn't fully researched it yet, but if that article's true, heads ought to roll for people that are teaching that in schools, because we've been pounding it from the pulpits in the General Assembly, and everybody's given lip service to the fact that we're not going to think that way in Tennessee. And if we had somebody perpetuating that, they're unfit to be teaching, instructing, or developing policy in the state of Tennessee.
One thing I see is the problem with a lot of the laws in Tennessee. They don't have any teeth. And I understand as the governor, your option will be to sign it, veto it, or let it sit for X number of days and it'll become law. But, from that bully pulpit, you could probably call out some of these toothless laws. And I had a candidate on here not long ago, and we were talking about the situation with the schools. And you guys pass all this thing, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. But the state doesn't enforce anything. So then you have to if you're in a school and they're violating something, well, but we passed a law so that you can file a private suit. Well, wait a minute. If a parent doesn't send their kids to school, they're gonna have to face the music for not sending their kid to school. So why can't our state enforce standards in the education system? Why can't they hold people accountable? Why do parents have to go, if they can even afford it, hire a lawyer to uphold something that the state has said, hey, you can't do that, or you have to do this?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that other than why we don't rigidly enforce the law that's on the books. And I could point to several examples where we aren't. We did some legislation to address illegals and crime with the illegals in the state. And and a sentence enhancement. And lots of people say, Monty, why would you want to incarcerate an illegal Trinidad Aragua member here in Tennessee? Well, I don't. I just assume them not come here. But they need to know if they come here and do bad things, violent crimes, we're going to lock them up forever. They're not going to see the light of day. And in that same law, and it passed, if an adult goes onto a school ground and commits a violent crime, they're subject to the same thing. There has to be harsh consequences. We have to enforce the consequences. So that means we have to charge against the crimes and so forth. So it's our founders were brilliant. I was just reading before we started about how we come up with the three branches of government. And I think it was Adams that got it from Scripture. And so our Article 2, Section 1 and 2 of the Tennessee Constitution precludes us from doing the responsibilities of the other departments, right? And we get that muddy some. We get it muddy a lot during session when the governor has folks that come down and work actively against our rights. And it's not just gun rights. Now, they're really bold about that. They speak with great authority that they speak for the governor and they philosophically disagree. And but it's property rights. It's lots of things. When you think, I was opposed to the whole school voucher thing. I voted no. It's unconstitutional. I think it should be suspended. Hint, hint. And and I think we ought to fully verbatim comply with what Article 11, Section 12 says. It says the General Assembly shall provide for the maintenance, support, and eligibility standards of system of free public schools. Not only do I think that's specific and restrictive that you can't expend public funds for private schools, but I think it's also something that we've pushed 30% of that cost back on the counties. And in many cases, I think, if I'm correct, in Roane County, about 60% of the cost for county business is schools.
Yep, that's across the board.
Wouldn't it be great if Nashville verbatim complied with that for whatever a base level? We need to define that. I'll direct a commissioner of education to define what a base capability for school is. That's not everybody gets a new gym, everybody gets a new football field, everybody gets a new building kind of thing. What's the base capability? And then I think that fits into that second sentence. There's three sentences in Article 11, Section 12. And it fits in that becomes the responsibility of Nashville. And how do we move back to that over a period of time? Couldn't be in year one, but it would in a period of time. I think good financial people and education people can get us to that point. And then we ought to give the opportunity for folks in Stewart County and Roane County to reduce the property taxes. Because I think when you take less dollars from the people, you liberate a durable economy. When we incentivize, when we do corporate welfare, we only train those corporations to come to us with our hands out. We're doing that a lot. We need to stop that. Governor's budget request ought to only be the functions of government. And you got my commitment. That's what I'm going to do. And that's going to rattle some cages and shake some worlds and make some heads explode. But that's the constitutional approach.
So we won't be funding Titan Stadium, or we won't be giving millions of dollars to Ford. I mean, unless they override your veto or something. But yeah,
no. And we won't be submitting a budget request for $60 million for 0% construction loans for new homes. That is not the role of government. We will not be submitting a request that provides contraception at cost to the citizen. That's not the role of government. If you want to go buy condoms, go to wherever they sell them and you go buy them yourself. Yep. And we certainly shouldn't be providing emergency contraceptive pills, which do two things. I'm told, I've read, I've heard from doctors, they prevent ovulation and they prevent implantation. And that second one's a problem for me because I think life begins at conception. And I think if we issue those pills without doing a pregnancy test, and it's coming out of your money and my money, that we have been contributors in ending a life that's holy in front of God Almighty.
Absolutely. Now, I've got a question for you. So obviously you're not as, Marcia has the best name recognition in this race, and in some cases that's a problem for her. In other cases it helps. Rose has been on the campaign for a little while. I had him on the show several months back. And so there's a lot of people that just can't, there's no way he can win. And I don't believe that. I don't think either Rose or Blackburn are entitled to this position. And, you have a fairly varied background. You haven't spent 30 years in the legislatures, but you spent a few years. You obviously know the Constitution, both state and federal. And in addition to being in the military, you said you worked in the nuclear field. I think you've done some so you've got a pretty varied background. You know a lot about several different areas.
And more importantly, I used to be able to lay a lot of blocks in one day and pour a pretty good slab of concrete. I mow my own grass, and on my old cars, I change my own oil. I think that those base things are something we miss sometimes, right? Just being able to function. I can change my own flat tires, but I hope I don't have any, because if I changed a flat on I-40 not too long ago, and it will scare a soldier to death to have to Dodge truck and change it because the traffic's unbelievable. Well, two things I think about that. First, I applaud both congressman and the senator for throwing their name in the hat, because they know they're going to subject themselves to scrutiny, right? Just as I am, and I appreciate that part. So I'm not running against them, but I am running against the Nashville establishment that says that people like me and you, Dave, need not apply. Because we're not connected in Nashville enough, or DC enough, or maybe even Hollywood, and we can't get celebrity people, and we won't have a bunch of people smiling next to us that they're endorsing us. Other politicians who may have scored 50 or 60 on the John Birch Society assessment of their constitutional and small government principles, but they're endorsing them, right? Yep. So I think that it's okay to run against that system. And that's what I'm doing. So I know it's a Mount Everest, and I know that I'm going to have every half truth and every full blown lie told as soon as they realize that there's a whole lot of people thirsty for liberty in Tennessee and sick of career politicians and the establishment. Absolutely. And so I'm braced for impact on that, and we're gonna charge. I'm going. There's a verse in 2 Kings 13 where Elisha instructs the king to strike the ground with some arrows. I'm going to empty my quiver. And what that means is not being mean, because I respect the people who run it. But I'm okay with calling out the things that we're collectively doing wrong. And I would hope that we would have statements from the other camps that are going to run for governor, and whoever else throws a name in. I think there will be more. But how do they feel about what just happened in the Hughes v. Lee? How do they feel about Tennessee barbers and cosmetologists and bar owners being declared non-essential? And as our emergency management director in Tennessee said on record, that if we didn't do that, if we pass Fritz's law, we won't be able to control looting. I don't know. I think sometimes somebody's spiking the water or something around these, because Tim Kaine certainly drank something that wasn't just aqua pura when he gave his statements the other day in committee. And sometimes I hear this from the folks in state government who have very good jobs, very well-paying jobs, that speak against our rights. And so all that to get to this point, I would offer two words: but God. I feel called. That's not a guarantee that God's ordained me or anointed me to win this. That's not. I don't have any chance to win this all by myself. It's impossible. What is possible, that those of us that love liberty, that if we'll seek God's blessing on this, we can take back from the Nashville establishment what has been taken from the average Tennessean. When things are good for the political circles where everybody's smiling in front of a camera and we're having these group photos of politicians and celebrities, but we look out the window and we can look 2 blocks down and see a fellow Tennessean that's having a hard time just eating, something's wrong.
Absolutely.
When we're at $60 billion and before I got there, we sent money to the Titans, and we have people that can't buy their medication, something's wrong. When we have folks that are moving every day under the protection of an armed escort, yet we will make it difficult for an old man or an old woman in Memphis to be able to carry a Glock because we don't really trust them with it in what's become a dangerous city, something's wrong. We've got the priority wrong. We shouldn't be prioritizing the big lobbyist and the special interest groups in Nashville, we ought to be doing things for all Tennesseans. And that's my commitment.
Absolutely. One last question, because I know you've got another thing to go to. Would you be, and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it, would you be willing to debate Kill Media, which is the parent company of Tennessee Informer, would like to host a debate with you and John Rose and Marcia, or,
Yes.
whichever one of them will do it? We'd love to host that. Would you sign on to that?
I would. I'd change one word there. I wouldn't call it a debate, because it's, I would hope that we all have the same end goal, and that's for the good of Tennessee. But what I would do is, what I would embrace is, let's all sit down and interview together with the people in Stewart County and Henry County and Weakley County and Shelby County. And let's interview up in Washington County and Roane County, Hamlin County. Let's interview. And let's let the folks ask us questions. And let's let them ask. I don't want to know the questions ahead of time. Let's come in and give our stump speech about what our vision for Tennessee is and how we course correct. Let me talk about the fact that I understand how to land navigate, and I understand how to navigate us from this place we don't want to be in. In '83, the first time I learned how to navigate terrain and land navigate with the Army. And I learned that I need to know where I was, where I had been, and I need to have an idea, a commander's intent of where I need to go. Well, I've got the commander's intent right now. And ultimately, it's Almighty God to do justice and do one another right. But it's the Constitution. That's the commander's intent. So get us back to liberty. Right now, we find ourselves positioned in a swamp of too much tax, too much regulation, even in Tennessee. And we're the best place in the world. I can't not say that. It's the very best place in the world to live, I'm convinced, but it can be better. Yeah. And if we accept that we're just going to say, well, Tennessee's better than California, I agree. But we're starting down a slippery slope. Some of those things, again, I go back to these foolish things that Tim Kaine had said. His ideology that he is the grantor of rights, how different is that in this than the appeal that we just filed on the Hughes v. Lee?
Yeah, that fits right in with it.
It's only marginal. Yeah, they think they can grant the rights, and that's constitutionally apostate. I'll use that 3 times. So let's sit down and interview, and let's take random questions from folks, and let's let them correct us and argue a little bit if we need to, and then let's leave the place and see who the folks in each one of the 95. I'd like to do it in all 95 counties. Let's leave the place then with the folks realizing who they think can better lead them out of this quagmire that we found ourselves in here in Tennessee, and let's move back toward liberty and less government.
So town hall interview in all 95 counties, or at least the counties we can get the other 2 to agree, or one of the other 2 to agree to. And if they don't show up, maybe we'll just have 2 empty seats.
Well, I can already tell you I'm going to hit all 95 counties, and I'll hit them multiple times. I know how to do that. I've done it before and do it again. And we're pulling that plan together now, and how we start doing that sometime November, December, and again in the spring. And I think that's important to spend. It doesn't have to be an all-day thing, right. Even just an hour.
Yeah, you can figure somebody out in about an hour. You can really figure out if in a town hall type or a forum that's not too choreographed, I guess you could say, you can figure out if somebody's got any substance in about an hour, in my opinion. So anyway, we will start asking about that. We'll start pushing that idea.
Let me close with this thought, and I'll be quiet, and I appreciate you having me on today. I'm so honored and humbled that I live in a place where I can throw them in, even though the political elitists don't want me to be in this. That's okay. They don't get to decide.
Right.
But I'm so humbled that I get to live in a place where somebody who grew up just very average, he and his wife didn't start with a whole lot. I think God's blessed me. I think I'm wealthy beyond anything I've ever deserved now. But I'm so honored that I can throw my name in the hat and try this. And I'm going to try to earn the vote of every person in Tennessee that I can shake their hand and look them in the eyes and tell them with the passion that you hear tonight or today about what's important to me and what my vision is to be the next governor and to serve them and to work for them over the next 4 years, 4 years after the election. And to recalibrate government, to realize everybody that reports to the governor, all the departments, all the senior leaders, and all those folks that they are bound under the Constitution as well, and that they work at the will of the people of the great state of Tennessee.
Well, I think people are going to like that. I think your message is going to resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, and then if it works out, and I think it will, I think I'll win this. I do. I think I'll win it. Hold me accountable. I'll make myself available. We'll make the governor's office available. We will make sure that there is a line that people answer or an email that you get a response to when you have problems in the different departments and agencies that work for the governor of the state of Tennessee.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on. I'm proud to have you on within a few hours of you announcing. I look forward to the campaign. We, Kill Media, will, contact the other two campaigns and see about doing town hall interviews. I think that's a good idea. So good luck to you. And once again, appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have you back in the near future, hopefully. Oh, by the way, I want to say this. Monty will be in Stewart County at the Visitor Center on October 30th, approximately 6 o'clock. We're still working out the exact time, but October 30th, Stewart County Visitor Center.
All right. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Have a good one. And we got a few announcements here. This coming Monday on our show, we have two different guests. We'll have Vanessa Miller from the 7 to 8 p.m. slot. She's going to talk about Isha, unmasking Isha. Is it spiritual science, spiritual control? What is it? Is there any criminal activity going on there? Is there any fraud going on there? So join us to find out about what's going on, and this is in the Cookeville area. And for our second show, we will have an ex-Muslim minister. He is going to talk to us about the Red-Green Alliance. That's the Marxists and the Muslims working to take America down. And I will try not to murder his name. I apologize. But Pastor Shahram Hadian, he has what's called Truth and Love Ministry, and that will be 8:30 p.m. Monday night. Hope you'll join us. And that's it for now. Good day from Paris, Tennessee, that is.